going on YouTube? Levi and
Austin.
of Old Iron Off-Road. What are we doing today, Austin?
We are putting our plasma table together.
We are. We purchased a Langmuir XL plasma table setup. I spent a bunch of time cutting some stuff by hand the other day and decided that I was done with that. With the technology and the price of these kits, why not go ahead and upgrade? So today we're going to dig into the assembly of this kit. Well, I say we. Austin is going to dig into the assembly of this kit. I'm going to piddle around on the internet, try to figure out the software, download some of the stuff that we need to actually make the table run. But yeah, hopefully by the end of the day, maybe we'll have this thing up and running. What do you think? You think we can have it done today?
I think we can make it cut today. Awesome.
All right, we'll give it a shot. So while Austin is unboxing, we've got the instructions pulled up on the computer over here. Looks like everything's pretty straightforward as far as the install. Reasonably well laid out directions. I did see a lot of people complaining about the clarity of the instructions, or that I'm not necessarily complaining, but I think there were some steps that if you maybe didn't follow the instructions, you could easily get ahead of yourself and actually have to disassemble some things that you had previously assembled. So we'll make sure we follow the instructions to a T. Not something that I'm honestly good at. right, so Austin got carried away and forgot to be filming this. So we've obviously got the machine up and running. It's running what it's called a break-in file right now. I don't have any design software loaded yet, so I'm gonna have to download some design software. Everything went together pretty easy. The only thing I'm gonna complain about is the plasma wiring instructions are like not, like you've got to dance around to really find what you're looking for, so it gets kind of tough sometimes. All right, so we got the plasma table firing. We're actually fixing to load a DXF file in it. We haven't drawn anything yet, but we had some issues trying to get the torch to fire, and I think it was partially my fault. There is a port on the plasma table that says torch on and off, and we didn't have anything plugged into it. So obviously the torch would not go on and off. Austin found that. There's a torch trigger wire that they send is super short, so we're actually extending that right now. That's what Austin's doing. And then I think we'll be able to actually make a test cut. If this works, then this went really well, and I'm not gonna complain. I will say the instructions are kind of crappy, don't you think, Austin?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the instructions on, like, the assembly of the table instructions are pretty spot on, but like as far as hooking up the torch height control, definitely could use, I mean, hooking up the plasma table is fairly straightforward, but there definitely could be some information on it. So that's all I'm gonna say about it. Other than that, it was pretty spot on. So we're gonna get this hooked up and then we will do a test cut. All right, so we've struggled through a little bit, trying to learn the position of the axes on the table. We had our laptop turned this way and it was really super confusing as far as when you were jogging it, where it was gonna go. I've got a friend in Pennsylvania, Brandon Burkowski. He's really, really slick. He's actually got, I think he's got the Pro. He's got a bigger version of this. So he gave us a crash course in sheet cam and fire control. So I think we've got everything figured out. We're gonna make our first cut. Got a dry run. So we got a dry run of our part. It's well within the boundaries of our material, so we're gonna do a cut. All right, so we got the plasma table installed and functional. A couple of things that is worth mentioning with plasma, you really want a good, clean, dry air source. So I have actually gone ahead, before we even put the plasma table, I actually made an after cooler with a water separator for this compressor. I've got a big draw transmission cooler mounted on the side here. I've got a DeVelbis water separator filter, and what we've got is, so this is a two-stage air compressor. Compressed air comes out of this first head, goes into the second head, it gets compressed again, comes out of this tube, runs into the top side of the of what we're gonna call a condenser transmission cooler, runs through the cooler, and by the time it hits the bottom, it should be cooled, and most of the moisture should be dropped out of it. Runs into this side of the water separator, where most of the water should pool and collect. I've got this valve on the bottom of it that is slightly open. This is actually only pressurized when the compressor is running. Charge air can go up to here and into the tank, and what it should net us, and seems to work fairly well, is really, really dry to air. I've ran this compressor for about 2 weeks with this setup on it. Anytime I've tried to drain water out of the tank, we get just a tiny, tiny amount. Huge improvement over what we did have. So that handles the moisture side of it for the most part, but one more thing I want to add. I want this table to be as ready to turn on and use as possible. I don't want to have to hook anything up to it. I don't want to have to drag air hoses over here. I don't want to have to drag cords. When I want to use it, I literally want to turn on the laptop, fire up the processor on the table itself and cut. So I'm gonna actually add a dedicated drop to this. I've got some 3/4 max lines that we've ran in the shop. I'm gonna tee into it, run a drop down to the ground, and we are also gonna be installing this big motor guard filter. So consumables should last a really long time, and the cut quality should be spot on. So I think that's what we're gonna do today. Once we get this installed, I actually have a part that I need to draw. So we'll take you through the CAD process and cutting and all that good stuff, so you get to see a cut start to finish. So this max line is really, really easy to use. It's super tough, maintenance-free airline. You don't ever have to worry about it rupturing. It's actually PEX, all PEX. It's PEX with an aluminum core in it. So it seems to hold up really well. And as you can see, making an addition or a change is super easy. All right, so we got the plasma table airline all hooked up, everything's happy. We're back over here on Green Bean, and I have been severely lacking on updates on this truck. Literally, you guys haven't seen it since we set the engine in, but we're almost to the point where we can fire this thing up. I'll do a video on it in the not so distant future. You know how life is, it tends to get in the way sometimes. The part we're gonna be cutting today is for the gauges. What we have here is a handy dandy set of Speed Hut gauges. That nice little fancy old Iron Off-Road logo in the middle. Wapow. So these gauges, the gauges that they sell, don't actually fit the holes in the 80 dash. There's a little bit of room around the outside. So what we're gonna cut is gonna be a little filler panel that actually takes up the extra space around the outside of this hole. I actually did the same thing on the red 80 that we built a couple of years ago. I'll include a link either up in the cards in the top corner or down in the description to that video. They look really nice. Essentially what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut a 5-inch circle with 2 little flanges that we can bolt in, and then we will make it fit this snugly. So, all right, so I've done some cardboard CAD, and this is roughly what you're gonna be looking at. And I don't know if this makes sense. We've got 7 inches overall. We've got, this is our center. We've got a 4 1/4 OD hole. We've got a 5-inch OD hole. And then we've got these little tabs with mounting holes on either side. And these are our dimensions. So I'm not gonna force you to sit through and watch me draw this part up. But here's our sketch. And I've actually already drawn that up. This is our flange. This is what we're going for. So basically we just fumbled our way through it. It was tough to get our dimensions how we wanted it, but we got it worked out nonetheless. So we've got our part drawn and it is saved as a DXF file. So now we're gonna go into SheetCam, and that's the program that's gonna actually write our G code. That's the actual programming code that the plasma table uses to run. So we're gonna go into SheetCam, we're gonna open, or we're gonna import a drawing. We're gonna import our gauge flange. And we're gonna make our tooling. So I've actually already created a tool for this sheet metal, and our tooling is appropriate to the size material that we're running. And then it should generate our cut path. You can see how the line changed to green. And it is actually showing us how the tool is gonna run. It's gonna come in from this corner, it's gonna run up, it's gonna cut this little hole, come down, cut that little hole, jump into this, and then it's gonna cut around this pattern. So once we've got the part where we want it, we are going to run post processor, which is going to generate a tap file. No post processor. I don't know why I have to always select the post processor. We're running fire control is the program that we're running, so we've got to tell it that's what it's exporting as. Fire control. Okay. So post processing complete. Now we're going to jump into the fire control program. So here we go. This is our part. Now we're going to set our 0 where we're wanting to actually center the part on the material. That's actually our lead in right there. So that's kind of close to where we want it to be. We can actually do a dry run on this part. It'll just go through the cut pattern. We make sure that we're not going to run off of the sheet anywhere. We're actually going to have to cut 2 of these. So I don't know if I turn on patterning, if I can do parts total, 1 column and 2 rows. So that should actually generate 2. You can see we've actually ran 2 parts, so it's going to give us the cut path for all of those. I've never done this before, so I am going to actually dry run this and make sure that we don't end up with anything weird going on. So let's do a dry run. All right, so now we're ready to cut. Now you can see how that looks installed. We'll get this painted, get a couple of machine screws mounted in there, and that'll add a nice little accent piece and take up the slack for the hole and gives it a nice finished look. I dig it. Well, we managed to get it running. What do you think, Austin?
Pretty easy, other than you forgetting how to turn the torch on and off.
So yeah, that was one of the biggest hurdles we had was I forgot to plug in the torch control so the torch wouldn't fire, and we meaning I struggled with trying to figure out why the torch wouldn't fire for a while. So once we got that sorted, I had a buddy, like I said, give us a crash course in sheet cam and the fire control program. We'll be cutting some cool stuff here pretty soon. Stay tuned. As always, enjoy.